Hello, everyone. This is Yuri of Moving Sales Professionals. We're here for another episode of our podcast. And with me today, I have Winston Davis with MoveUp Consulting. How are you?
Great, man. Yuri, thanks for having me on, man. This is great. Glad you're doing this.
No problem. No problem. We always try to keep it interesting. We want to have people from various sides of the moving industry. So having you on here is great. So Winston, what got you into the industry? How did MoveUp Consulting happen?
Yeah, so me and my wife, we live in a little city called Winchester, which is about an hour west of Washington D.C. So that's where we're located, and I've been here
Okay.
for about since 2014. So that's I got to count, 8 or 9 years or so. And I was finishing up school. I got my bachelor's degree at a private school up here, and I studied exercise physiology. Never used it, and I was in between, and I saw an ad uh, for a job called truck captain, and it was with a college hunks hauling junk and moving franchise up here. I did athletics in college. I just saw the word captain and kind of was like, oh, well, that seems like something that like it's leadership related. I had no idea it was for like being a
Right.
mover. So,
Right.
so I go to the job interview in a suit and tie, and the franchise owner, Steve, he sits down with me. He's kind of looking me up and down, asking a couple questions. And then he's like, so you ever done sales? And I'm like, nope. And he was like, do you want to? And I was like, if it comes with a job, I'm open. And at the time I was working for a fitness club as like a front desk associate. And I think at the time I was making, this was in 2017, and I was making like $7.50 an hour.
That's about right.
It was pretty low. And so anyways, long.
And now for a quick message from our sponsors. For a limited time only, we have partnered with an SEO and marketing company with discounted rates for their services. Schedule an appointment via Calendly link below to learn more. Thank you. And now getting back to the podcast.
Story short, I ended up getting started as a moving sales consultant. And I, after about a year, I moved into a sales manager role, and then I did that for 2 years. And after a little over 3 years, COVID happened. I was still selling, but things got a little different, and it made me just think a lot about what my opportunities were. And I left that sales position role, and I actually went to go sell insurance for a little bit. That didn't really spike my interest all that high. And then I was kind of just like jobless, so to speak. And my friends were like, well, you know all this stuff about moving and how to do sales and moving. Why don't you just go try to start like some type of consulting business? And that's really where MoveUp Consulting came from. I started it off as a sales training coaching business. And for about the first 6 months, that's what I did. I worked with small, local, independent moving companies doing sales training, different types of coaching and consulting, and quickly realized that that was very hard to scale. And then I had this client in New York who was like, man, this stuff is great, but I don't have any crews to dispatch to all these jobs. And so I need more drivers and helpers. He's like, if you can help me solve that, I'll pay you I'll pay you 3 times what I pay you now. And I was like, sure, like I'll figure it out. So that was kind of the start of the recruiting side. And so I figured out, oh, there's a big market for this.
Oh, absolutely.
I
I can
realized,
right now, as we're talking, I'm thinking of a couple of people that have been looking for operations and movers and stuff like that. That could definitely be, you know, up and up on that right now. I mean, actually, after you and I talk, I think I'll make a couple of phone calls.
yeah. Yeah. So there was just a giant, I didn't realize it, but I just kind of stumbled into doing the recruiting and hiring piece. And then I just pivoted the business model. I kept the branding and the business name and all that stuff the same. And then we just became a recruiting agency rather than a consulting firm. And that was about 2.5 years ago. And now it definitely was a good decision. I think we've worked with a little over like 130 moving and storage companies throughout the US. We've been in like 32 states. So we went a good direction. It was a good call.
Cool. I mean, and certainly in terms of on the sales side, having us around. And by the way, I didn't realize you were in Winchester, Virginia. So you're actually about 2 hours away from us.
Yeah, where are you located?
We're 45 minutes from Pennsylvania state line in Maryland. We're in Reisterstown, Glendon area of
London. Okay.
Maryland.
Yeah, yeah,
You,
Maryland. Okay.
you should
Yeah,
stop by. You should stop by.
yeah. I need to. We'll maybe we can meet in the middle. We get lunch or something. That's a good idea.
Yeah, yeah. We should.
Yeah.
We should get together. I go to DC often enough. My kid plays hockey, so we're in
Oh,
Virginia often enough. I was just in Rockville this past weekend.
yeah. So you guys, are you Caps fans?
No, I'm a Penguins fan.
You're a Penguins fan. Okay, that's
Yeah,
what.
I grew up in Pittsburgh, so like if I show you things behind the truck, you're gonna see like Penguin things all over the place in my office.
Cool,
So
cool.
I have like newspapers from when the Pittsburgh won the Stanley Cups and stuff like that that are.
You're like a real fan then. Yeah.
Yeah. I grew up playing hockey. I've been playing hockey since I was 12. My son is a goalie. He plays for Howard Huskies. So
Wow.
we're around. We're constantly going to tournaments and stuff like that. And
Super
yeah,
fun.
we got a
Oh,
10U is where he plays right now. So he's young, he's 9. But yeah, we just won. We just got runner-ups or second spot in a Philadelphia tournament in January. So, or was it February, January, February. Anyway, recently. So, but yeah. But anyway, getting back to MoveUp. So, what challenges have you faced in recruiting and retaining talent?
well, there's a lot. The first and foremost, I think for me is I was not a recruiter when I started this business. So I had to learn everything about recruiting all from scratch. So that was probably one of my biggest challenges. But then in as far as the industry, to me, it's not so much about like some companies struggle a lot with getting guys in the door or getting quality talent in the door. But what's much, much harder is keeping that talent.
Yeah,
And
retention is definitely a hard thing for everybody,
yeah,
generally speaking.
and the culture is what's way harder. It takes way more time, effort, resources, and skills. So, you know, we for clients like we will help them get a lot of traffic coming into their door, but then if they're not equipped locally with them and their management team to take care and nurture those relationships, then they every year they're starting over, and that's what a
Right.
lot of feel. It's like every year there's a reset with the staff, and that's tough. That's
Yeah.
tough. I can
Yeah. And now for a quick message from our sponsors. If you're a moving business owner, you may have already heard of Moversville, an email marketing service that helps moving companies increase, repeat, and referral business. But have you heard of Moversville Connect? Moversville Connect is an incredible resource for all things moving. They feature an array of vendors and services that cater specifically to the moving industry. You can find companies that provide moving software, moving sales services, marketing services, moving equipment providers, and much, much more. Visit moversville.com to learn more. Yeah, that's something that we don't do. I can tell you personally, for us, I value the time that we spend into training. I value the people that I have here. And realistically, in the moving industry versus a lot of people feel that way just in general, but it's realistically, you can do a lot of things, but it's the people that will get you there.
That's it.
It's the people that fit the mold, that support the company, that can see the bigger picture, that can see the process, that understand what you're trying to build, what the long-term gain is, and stuff like that. That's what really gets you there. That's
Yeah.
the big focus for us, certainly. So yeah, it's like I can tell you right now, this past year was a slow year for everybody. So this past year, I personally took money out of my account to continue paying the crew that I have versus firing people. And this was done on purpose because realistically, it takes more money and time to bring a new person in and build them and get them to the point where you already have the people that are already trained and are doing things. So it takes longer to build a new person up versus keeping the old person that's already doing what you need them to do, that already understands the culture aspect.
Yeah. 100% agree. 100%. People don't realize the true cost of turnover.
Right.
There's not just recruiting. It's not just the advertising to acquire the talent. It's then all the labor that goes in on like your manager or you that are interviewing and screening. And then there's, then once you hire them, then there's labor of the new hire and
Right.
the or owner labor, and there's opportunity loss. That's the one that's probably the biggest that people don't think of, is how many more jobs could we have done if we had kept that driver? How many more jobs could we have done if we had kept that talented?
Absolutely. See, the funny part for all you ladies and gents who are listening to us right now is that we are basically preaching to each other's choir right here. Winston
Yeah.
on the labor side, I'm on the sales side. We're talking about the same thing. And the same thing is this. Some of you may think, okay, well, I'm going to hire my own staff. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. But this is one thing that you guys, well, I'm not saying all of you, but this is one thing that a lot of people don't put it in terms of finances, right? So you're going to spend money on Indeed. You're going to spend money on Monster. You're going to spend money on all those hiring websites, right? You're going to spend money on Craigslist. You're going to spend countless hours going through resumes. You're going to spend countless hours talking to these people via text messaging, email, phone, bringing physically for interviews. Some of them are not going to show up for interviews. Some of them are not going to show up the first day of work. You're going to have people that you bring in for training for a month, for a first week, for a first month, who may tell you later, you know, this is not for me. And you have to start all over from scratch versus working with Winston, for example, where he is working on that side. Correct, Winston? You're prepping those people for them, right?
Yep.
And
Yeah.
versus me, where I have the salespeople that are going to be ready to book for you day one from once we start working. So we're all on the same side. So you may be thinking, you know, oh, Winston's service costs so much more, or Yuri's service costs so much more. But think about that. What is your time worth to you? What is your time worth to you? That time that we could be doing all this stuff for you, that Winston can be doing it for you, that I could be doing it for you, right? All that time that you could be spending that on growing your business. You can be spending that on coming up with new ideas, new revenue streams, new things that you can do to get your business to that next level, to scale. You know, those are the things. Don't spend that valuable time, especially during, you know, overturn and busy season, the current marketing situation that we're all in. You know, don't spend that time on the things that we could do for you. Winston is going to help you on the mover side. I will help you on the sales side. Well, let us do that for you. Let us have the people for you. They're going to, you know, don't spend that time.
Yeah.
That time is valuable, especially as you're trying to scale. You know, and yeah, retention is it's a big thing. I you know, I'm proud of the fact that I have very low rate of turnover.
Yeah. Yeah, I just think about the stress. You talked about the time and the psyche that gets drained out of you, and just like starting over with people. It's such a gut shot, isn't it? Like when you have a quality person, or sometimes it's, I mean, sometimes it could be a low quality person that you're just keeping around in your business because you have the inability to hire. We could talk about that in a minute. That's a lot of moving companies. They're handcuffed by their guys because they can't go get new people. So then they just like lay down to all like the BS in their business. They allow their moving team to basically control them and walk over them. And that's not how it's supposed to be.
Right. It shouldn't be a point where this guy is consistently showing up late for work.
Yeah.
But you can't fire him because he's a good foreman. And whenever he does go to a job, he's doing it right. Right. It's kind of the same.
Always what they say. It's always
right. And it's you know, it's something that I've heard in past couple of interviews that I've done for this podcast, and some of them are going to be, you're going to be seeing them come out soon. But if you haven't yet, at this point we're, I think, at least 2 months out with our recordings. We have, like, they're coming in fast and furious at this point for us. So there's going to be a lot of interesting things you guys are going to hear. But yeah, something I'm consistently hearing. It's the company culture. It's all getting into that. It's the people. You don't just because what people are what are you willing to tolerate? And the thing is this: you shouldn't have to tolerate somebody that's not showing up consistently, or somebody that's constantly needs a day off, or somebody that's like, and I mean, I'm not talking about like the regular, they need suddenly magically you get called on a late Friday night and say, oh, I'm sorry, I can't make it in on Saturday. No, come on, guys. It's like, because here's the thing. On one side, you're thinking in the median sense, oh, but when he works, he's a great guy. But there's a but. What is he doing to your other guys? Because this is what's going to happen. You're going to have a mental thing where they're going to look and say, well, he can get away with that. Why can't I?
Exactly.
And suddenly you have a bunch of people that are late, a bunch of people that are calling you off last minute, and you're constantly in the state of flux trying to, make sure that the guys go. You have to reschedule. You're doing complaints because you have to reschedule last minute. You may have to cancel jobs. Is that worth it?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you're trying to build something. Like, what you're doing is you're spinning your wheels in the same spot. You're not going anywhere because of people like that. So it's, that's what we need to do, so, but getting back to that. So what in your experience, what is the normal retention rate of a mover, for example?
Yeah, it's a metric that I've been really working hard to try to get more narrowed down. But in my experience, a mover, mover helper. Let's try to get this narrowed down.
Right.
A lot of times, it's going to be anywhere from 5 to 8 months. Now, a driver can be a little bit longer. That retention can be more closer to the 8 to 12-month range, but that's normal. I mean, and what it means is that every year you're probably going to have a third or half of your staff be new. So here's one thing that I was thinking about as you were speaking, Yuriy, is I think too many moving company owners put the cart before the horse. They're so worried about the jobs that they're booking, and they're like, well, we got 9 jobs on the calendar tomorrow, and it's just always like chase, because they never want to say no to a moving job. Listen to some of the gurus in this space, and they're like, don't book a move. But that's actually bad business advice, in my opinion. If you don't have you should know the threshold of you need to know the capacity that your team can do. And what'll happen is we'll throw guys out on a job who have had little to no training, and then you wonder why they create bad habits. And then you're just constantly
bad habits, bad reviews.
Yeah.
In the end, you're hurting yourself.
Yeah. So a lot of moving companies need to kind of deconstruct the way that they do onboarding and training. Those are 2 separate things. Most people put them together in the same sentence, but they are actually a little bit different. And they just need to kind of slow down in order to speed up, in my opinion.
Right. They basically look, it's it's kind of a couple of things. On one side, you want the business when it's there to be had, but at the same time, if you throw people that are going to end up putting bad reviews for you on the board because they're simply not ready, that's going to hurt you in the long run a lot more than if you if you just say, I'm sorry, we're sold out for that day. I'd love to help you. I have a spot available tomorrow, or I have a spot available in 2 days. Or you know what I can do is let me give a call to people I do have scheduled for tomorrow, and let me see if any of them maybe needs an extra day to pack or get ready or whatever. And if I can help you with that, I will. Let me make that quick phone call. But it's give it a try. But if you don't have it, you don't have it. And it's like, it's okay to say no. It's the same thing I tell my salespeople. There are customers that you don't want to book. There are customers that, look, you haven't even done the inventory. You haven't even got to the job yet. You haven't even took their credit card. You haven't even got all the information and booked the move yet, and they're already screaming at you for something that you said. What do you think is going to happen if something, God forbid, goes wrong on the move? It's not worth it. Not every customer that you talk to needs to be booked. You need to make that distinction because, and it's the same thing. Not every person that comes to you looking for a job, you should give the job to. It's like, it's worth, you need to I don't know. I mean, you have people that talk a lot about personality tests. I was talking about Vince Barano, for example. He is a guy that used to that was with JK Moving for a long time, and in general, and he was talking a lot about personality tests. And that's something I think that everybody needs to look into, do those and find out the personality tests that work for you in terms of choosing the people that fit that, you know, description that you're looking for. Do they have the capacity? Do they have the, you know, can they fill out paperwork properly? You know, it's like I know for us, for sales guys, we work with a lot of moving companies, right? So we have companies nationwide in US, we have companies in Canada, we have companies in UK that we work with, right? So when we get this paperwork that we cannot understand what's on it, that's complicated, especially if we don't understand what's on it. How are we going to explain it to a customer?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a lot of things that you want to, you know, and of course today's competitive job market where for movers, of course, the prices are going up. But honestly, quality people are worth the money.
I think when I look, a lot of times numerous moving company owners always ask me, hey, how much are other companies paying their movers and drivers? It's one of the most asked questions we get.
Right, of course.
What are the pay rates? And, you know, we've got kind of a range on that. I actually, back in the middle of 2022, I kind of did a big data grab of every moving company we service and just did an average. Helpers are between about 1650 and 20. That's the average. And then drivers are between about 1850 and 23. And that's average. That's average starting pay. Average starting pay. If you have a really quality individual, which does not always mean moving experience, but if they're a quality human, right? An extra dollar an hour, an extra couple dollars an hour can be worth it if your infrastructure is in place with you and your management. You're just going to shell money out, though, if you don't have the proper culture, the proper dynamics, the proper growth track opportunities. Ultimately, the number one reason people leave jobs is because they don't feel valued and appreciated. That is the number one reason. There's a lot of stats out there, and that's the number one. And most moving company owners and their management staff, they need to work on those skills. They just don't spend enough time on them.
Right. And sometimes, honestly, the interesting thing is that in a lot of cases, people don't necessarily leave because of the money factor. They need to feel like they're needed. They need to feel like they're wanted. They need to feel like there's a growth track. Because, guys, let's face it, our bodies are not going to last forever.
Mm-hmm.
So what happens to movers? Okay, sooner or later, they're going to come to a realization that, hey, I'm not as young as I used to be. And now I have all these extra aches and pains that I got from moving heavy furniture and stuff like that. So sooner or later, they're going to be thinking, okay, I need to be doing something else. So do you guys want to lose somebody's experience that's been working for 20 years in the industry or whatever? Or can you think about a longer term position for somebody? Where do you vision them? Do you vision them to be part of your company? If you are, then you need to make those people understand that, hey, you know, it's reality. You can't be a strong man forever. You know, sooner or later, you're going to want something more, right? And at that point, we're growing as a company. So, you know, we could use you as a trainer. We can use you as a operations. We can use you here. We can use you there where the company's growing. Maybe we'll open up a new location and, you know, we've been able to trust you for all these years. Maybe we're going to have you run that for us. You know, you got to think, I think when you hire people, you want to think also long term is, do I picture this person as somebody that could potentially down the road not be a mover? Maybe I'll have a different use for them. And that's something that people like, whether it's moving or something else. Everybody wants to feel like there's a chance to advance.
Yeah. we spoke a few minutes ago about the turnover cost. About right around at the 4-month mark is where you just start going into the green with like a mover or driver hire. If they leave before 4 months, you've lost money. You should just look at it as like, we lost money. And so I also, another thing to think about is the lifespan on someone being on your moving team. I just figure, I know some people are going to disagree with this, that's fine. But like, I mentally in my mind figure I'm not going to have someone be a mover longer than probably 5 years. And it's an amazing win if I keep a guy over a year. And the sweet spot is if you can keep some guys that are with you on your moving staff for 2, 3, 4 years. But the truth is that you don't want the lifetime mover normally. I don't necessarily always want that person. They do have a space in some roles, but you need to have a plan. And some moving companies, they just think, oh, well, if I'm not promoting somebody to be a manager, like an ops manager, or dispatcher, or GM, or if I'm not promoting them to sales, then I really don't have anything for them. And that's just not true. It's just a lack of creativity. You could go to a mover, maybe somebody that's a crew lead driver, and say, hey, what's your interest in long-term becoming a 1099 contractor and then investing some money to get your own truck, and then we can pay you a percentage of sale rather than pay you hourly. Most moving companies in America now don't do that, but that's how the industry used to always be. That's how everybody, but now that's how most people do it. But like, that's a growth opportunity that you could really talk with someone about and say, hey, you could invest into your own asset. We can help you. And your claims will go down drastically when you do stuff like that. It's not for everyone.
If they're buying into your thing. And it's kind of the same thing that, as you were saying it, that I was thinking too, is that, if you have somebody that has a mind to potentially be a moving company owner, right? Yeah. Which realistically, show me a foreman that doesn't want to be one eventually, right?
Yeah. That's almost half of all moving company owners start is they
right. Right. So what is it better? Would you rather have a competitor that person turns into, or would you rather have that person to turn into a partner?
Yeah.
That in the future, he will send you jobs, you will send him jobs. Wouldn't you rather have somebody that you have a great business relationship with potentially down the road?
Mm-hmm.
That's much better than having an enemy, frankly.
Yeah. I love the model of like, and it depends a lot on your market, and there's a lot of things that go into these decisions. We're just kind of conversating like a fireside chat here on a podcast, but like, I love the idea of taking someone and then allowing them to open up kind of a pilot office, like maybe an hour or 45 minutes away from your main headquarters, and then allow them to grow and flourish and become a really strong location. But most of the time, there's plenty of business in the current market you're in, and most business, I mean, I'm sure you could talk about this for several minutes, Yuriy, but like, there's a lot of business to be had where people are standing. They get really distracted with like, oh, I want to open up another location. But there are actual legitimate times when opening that location is a good idea if you have the person that can run it, the manager. That's what you have to have that. If you don't have that, more times than not, it falls on its face.
Yeah. Once again, it's all about the right people.
Yeah. The right people in the right seats.
Yes.
That's the right people in the right seats. When we say seats, we mean roles.
Right. Roles.
This is where, and maybe you can run on this, is the processes. Like, you have to have these things written out and detailed in your business. There's a role, but then there's responsibilities and duties underneath that role. And if that stuff's not detailed out and written and put in writing, you're just not there yet. I mean, I'm sure you guys have really grown a lot with your processes doing what you're doing.
Absolutely. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of where I want to leave this today, because it is about having the right people in right roles and to have their responsibilities clearly defined. Who is doing what? Who is covering what? What are your responsibilities today? So, but once again, Winston, this has been a pleasure.
Yeah,
We're definitely going to connect outside of this because I think that there's definitely a lot of things that we could do together in the long term.
I agree.
And we're definitely going to connect on another podcast down the road, I think.
I hope so.
So,
Hopefully MoveUp starts a podcast and then you can come be a guest and we'll just
sure.
every quarter we'll just be on each
Yeah.
other's. Yeah.
Absolutely. I feel that happens a lot. But of course, at the same time, not to say like I love having personalities. You know, that's what I want. I want people that everybody that's listening to our podcast or anybody else's podcast that's interesting to listen to. But
Yeah.
at the same time, you'd love to have people back, but at the same time, you want to have new people on also.
Yeah.
Because it's like look, if I invite you to my podcast, three out of the next 6 podcasts, people are gonna get tired of us.
Yeah. Yeah. Well,
You,
maybe the show we just talk about sales because I mean, remember I sold for a little over 3 years and I love sales. I love moving sales.
Oh, I can talk about that forever. I've been doing it
Yeah.
for 20 years. So,
You're far superior, I'm sure, than me. But I would love that. That would be a great episode. Is just cutting it up about.
it's not honestly, it's not about superiority. It's not about experience. It's what you personally get out of that experience. Because somebody can have a lot less experience than me and be a lot further along. Maybe it's what you get out of it. It's what you turn that experience into. But anyway,
That's
it's been a pleasure to have you. And as always, the world moves on its own. So let the professionals move yours. Thank you very much for being part of our podcast. Continue listening, subscribing. We're going to have some links underneath this podcast for MoveUp so you can check out MoveUp Consulting and Winston. And once again, it was a pleasure to have you on.
Yeah. Thanks, Yuri. Appreciate it.
Thank you.